Welcome everyone, welcome to Sunday. Today is an interesting Sunday. Why? It is so because we are now 3 to 4 days away from the release of the raid, the Mythic raid as well as the Mythic Plus with the unlocked item level, etc, etc. But there is also something else. I wanted to go over the question, the feeling you all have, we all have about Zereth Mortis. How has it been as a zone? This entire expansion, from the start to what we can assume is the finish, we got from Demo through Korthia and then through Zereth Mortis. Zereth Mortis, of the three zones, is the one that changed the most, really. Is the one where from the PTR to the release, this cycle had the most changes, from going back to the PTR to the beta, really, of Shadowlands, looking at how the Mo was, and then into the PTR for 9.1 for Korthia. This zone, Zereth Mortis, is the one that received the largest amount of changes back and forth in the several weeks that the patch had been in the PTR. So Blizzard tried multiple things. First, flying was tied to reputation, and then the double legendary was tied to reputation, and then it was detached from the reputation. Now it was about daily quests and world quests and grinding, and then the legendary was tied to the chapters of the story. But then they pulled a last minute change where they made the double legendary unlock based on the amount of rares you were grinding, and then that was reverted less than 24 hours later. So we did have a large amount of changes for this zone, but now we have gotten the zone. Now we have the zone. For the last 10 days, we have all been in Zereth Mortis, and we will continue to be, but I think it was worth talking about it today or by the end of this week, because from next week we will be experiencing that zone with flying. We will be experiencing that zone, at a quite faster pace and an easier level than before. So when we talk about the open world in WoW, usually we have two sides of the coin. We have two factions debating how an open world zone should be. You have the camp, the group of people who wants essentially just something to do in the zone, because if there isn't anything to do, then they are the first ones in line, always ready to point out that, there is no content, there is nothing to do, the zone is boring. And then there is the opposite side, the opposite faction, which is effectively the one that just doesn't like being told what to do, doesn't like having a list of chores to complete every day. Otherwise, if they don't, they are going to leave their character behind. So the ones that, for example, in the Mo knew that they had to get into the Mo and keep grinding Stygia until they reached the max level of attention from the jailer, and they needed it because of the reputation with Venari and the Stygia that they would have needed to get their sockets, for example. Korthia was perhaps even more oppressive, because you didn't even have a timer in Korthia. There was no limit like we had in the Mo. Instead, it was a several pages long list of things you had to do every day, from picking up all the treasures, the secrets, the caches and the chests, the extra phase in the Shadow Realm where you had to get the special caches available every day, and then you had the rare grind, perhaps the most oppressive of the features in Korthia, having to essentially just chase every rare because you needed the archivist research for the same reason. In the Mo, it was for the sockets. In Korthia, it was still for the sockets. And then you also had the extra of the conduit upgrades. So either way, either zone was basically filled with these type of daily chores, quite demanding daily chores. And, the response was negative to both zones. The response was that it was just too long of a chore, too long of a list of things to do every day. And even then, the reward wasn't that big. Yeah, the sockets are cool, fine, the conduit upgrades, but Blizzard nerfed the conduits before the release of this expansion to be much, much weaker, to not be as important. So even the item level increase of the conduit is okay, it's cool, but it's not really warranting 1 hour of demo grinding for like 2 months. Right? So the main complaint of the two previous zones was that there was too many chores, too much to do, which also wasn't that entertaining. I still think that Korthia was an improvement over the Mo overall. I think that, first of all, the zone was cooler. The zone was just better. It was also better to traverse and to travel around. You also had, at the very least, you had some ways to just do your things every day. Some things were longer and grinder and more tedious, others were a little bit faster. If there was one point to complaint in Korthia was of course the randomness. The fact that daily quests, for example, were randomized in whether or not they were going to reward you with any type of archivist research. And same goes for rares. Also, they were completely randomized. You could have gotten 5 archivist research, or you could have gotten 150. It was just random. So when we had Zereth Mortis out, Blizzard clearly went a different way. As we said, they ping-ponged back and forth a little bit in the PTR in choosing what they wanted to go with this zone, but clearly, quite clearly, they lowered the amount of things, chores, duties you have to complete in the zone. Because at the moment, assuming you have completed the first few research options in the Cipher of the First One system, the Casual Understanding is the one that gives you the extra world quest, the third world quest, and the Altonian Understanding, the second one, is the one that gives you the third daily quest. So as long as you've done those two, what you have throughout the day, throughout the daily reset, is going to be 3 world quests and then 3 daily quests. Also, worth mentioning that one of the world quests is always going to be the minigame, the completing the minigame, which takes literally 10 seconds, so it's a very fast world quest. So effectively, what you have to do throughout the day should take you, if the dailies and world quests are not too obnoxiously grindy, it should take you less than 20 minutes every day to be done in Zereth Mortis with the important things. Then, as was Blizzard's plan, they still wanted to give something to players that wanted to min-max their reputation, then min-max their gains. So you can still hunt the rares, so you can still do the rare ring around the rosy throughout the entire zone, picking rare after rare every day for 10 to 15 extra rep per rare. The difference is that in Korthia, that was essentially the way to get reputation. It was the only way. It was 60 to 70% of the way you were going to get your rep, whereas in Zereth Mortis it was the opposite. In Zereth Mortis, 70-ish% of the reputation you can get comes from world quests and daily quests, and only 30% or so comes from rares. This means that if you don't want to grind, if you don't want the extra chore, the extra rare hunting, you can just be done in 20 minutes and you get 70% of the power you could have gotten in Zereth Mortis. Now, the question, of course, is some people still are going to complain. We pointed out at the start that the camp of people who are disappointed when they don't really have anything to do in the game. They enjoy the idea of logging into the game and then opening up the map and selecting their dozen world quests they have to complete every day to feel happy that they have powered up their character a little bit more. This is not present, of course, in Zereth Mortis. Besides the rare hunting, there isn't really anything else that can keep you in the zone and feeling like you're progressing your character. This is also something that sparked a little bit of drama. Remember when there was the statement from Blizzard saying that the Cipher of the First One's system was not going to have any player power, and then people found out that you needed to get a certain reputation level, revered, to be able to get the double legendary. So players were like, Blizzard lied. There is some power, some player power, character power tied to the open world. That wasn't true back then because, as we pointed out before, the Cipher of the First One system does not have any player power. The reputation, which is tied to the Cipher of the First One system, did. Blizzard severely lessened the importance of the reputation now that everyone will be able to get their freebie legendary, their freebie Covenant legendary on week 7. You get your free belt at 265 item level, and then they gave yet again an extra push to players who want to go a little bit further beyond, because you can get to revered as fast as you can, as fast as you want, and at revered you will get the memory, which allows you to craft the Covenant legendary. Not only you can craft it wherever you want, so you're not forced to keep it in the belt, but more importantly, you can craft it at 26, 27 more item levels than what you will get in the belt for free. So I like this idea of, keep 70-ish, more or less 70% of the power in the open world or in the daily chores you have to do, and then leave the extra 30% if you want to do more. Leave the extra 30% for players who want to dump the extra time into that extra part, but not make it like everyone every day has to do these long chores, 1 hour, even 2 hours of chores every day. You know, if we had to translate this back into Korthia, the way Korthia should have worked is that the daily quests gave you guaranteed archivist research. Up to 70% of all of the archivist research you can get every day. And then the rares, the rare you can hunt in Korthia, were going to give you 30-ish% of the archivist research compared to what you were getting in the dailies. This would have made it much better. This would have made it so that if you don't care about Korthia, if you think rare hunting is boring, you can do your dailies in half an hour and be done. You don't have to go and look for rares. Instead, what we had in Korthia was complete RNG. So it was much more oppressive and annoying to deal with. What we have gotten now in Zereth Mortis, this system where you're getting a pretty rich package of what you want to get in there in Zereth Mortis Reputation by default, by world quests and daily quests, and then the extra is like a side dish, you know, it's like an extra slice of cake that you can get at the end for some more effort, but it's not the main bulk of the reward. I think that is a pretty good change compared to what we have seen in the last 2 zones of the expansion in terms of, you know, the defeated, crippling feeling of logging in every day and knowing that if you want to keep up your character, you have to get into the Maw. You have to get into Korthia. At the very least now in this patch, getting into Zereth Mortis doesn't really look as bad. Like, is there any one of you here as triggered, as frustrated, knowing that you have to get into Zereth Mortis every day compared to having to go into the Maw every day back in 9.0? You know, I doubt it. I doubt there are too many people who enjoyed the Maw more than they do in Zereth Mortis, honestly. And that was the question for today. How have you been in Zereth Mortis? How do you feel the zone is compared to the couple last zones we had in this expansion? We can even bring it back, by the way. You can compare this zone to Najatar, you can compare this to Mechagon, you can compare this, even if you remember, you can compare this all the way back to the Molten Front or even the Isle of Thunder if you want to. How do you feel the engagement throughout the zone is compared to the previous endgame special zones that got added patch by patch in WoW expansions? If you would rather have wanted more content to be in there, for example, more daily quests, perhaps instead of 3, 6 daily quests, or maybe the opposite, 6 world quests, something more to keep you there every day, perhaps some other type of activities that you could have done in Zereth Mortis that also gave you rep. You know, maybe a special event that you could do every day, maybe a scenario you could do solo or in a group for extra rep, something different than rare hunting, than rare farming that we have gotten this expansion, which seem to be the you know, the trend after BFA, where we got the rare hunting in Mechagon, the rare hunting in Najatar. We carried that over in Shadowlands for the first 2 patches, for the first 2 versions of the game. This time around, finally, it has gotten a little bit weaker. I just wish there was a little bit more. Because, you know, I kind of wanted a middle ground. Between the 1.5 hour to completely min-max Korthia, perhaps even more, even 2 hours to min-max Korthia, and the, if you're lucky, 15 minutes it takes you to do Zereth Mortis right now. I wish there was a middle of the pack, a middle ground that didn't involve rare hunting and rare farming. I'm sure it's gonna become a little bit better, you know, a little bit easier to enjoy this with flying. Because flying, of course, is going to make it much easier for you to hop from rare to rare, so the gain of ciphers and the gain of rep is going to be much faster. It's going to take you much less, but even then, I wish there was something else between the world quests and the dailies and the rare grind in Zereth Mortis. I still think, overall, it's a much better zone than both the Maw and Korthia. It is not that it matters, maybe for your feeling of the day, but it's much cooler, it's much better looking than the previous 2 zones in this expansion. It is luckily also easier to traverse, as right from the get-go you get 3 teleporters to move around, so it's also quite handy. So for this Sunday, this is the question I will leave you with. Your feeling, your first impression, your first couple of weeks impression of Zereth Mortis. Is it too little? Is it not enough? Is it okay because you're scarred from what you had to do in Korthia, so now you enjoy being a little bit more laid back in the open world? You let me know. What we get tomorrow very likely is going to be the video about getting flying, about the achievements you need to do to get flying. So that's what we're gonna get in the next video. For today, however, I will leave you to the rest of your last day of the weekend. Thank you guys, of course, for watching the video, for helping to grow the channel. You can, of course, do more by liking and commenting on this video, as well as, of course, subscribing to the channel. For this video, however, we are going to enable the subscription button to all of the players who enjoy Zereth Mortis more than Korthia and more than them all. I am also, if you want to follow, as a reminder, on Twitter over here. I learned the fingers now. And also, if you want to support me, I am on Patreon over here. Patreon will also give access to my private Discord server. Super secret, super exclusive, by the way. Thank you guys again. See you guys soon. And in the meantime, you know, I don't think a lunch based on cookies is normal. Is it normal? I don't think it's normal.